Oh, wow!
Behind the laughter, fame, and charm of Will Smith lies a story of pain, resilience, and redemption. From a childhood shadowed by fear to global superstardom, his journey is not just about Hollywood success, but about surviving battles most people never see. This is Will Smith, Unmasked. Will Smith is one of the most recognizable stars on the planet. A man whose smile could light up any room, whose charisma made him the king of blockbuster cinema, and whose humor won over millions. But that charm, that smile, that magnetic energy was not just a gift. It was also a mask. Behind the carefully polished image stood a boy who carried scars most people never saw. Scars from a home where laughter wasn't always safe, where love and pain coexisted under the same roof. His rise to fame was not just a pursuit of greatness. It was an escape, a way to build a fortress of applause around wounds he didn't want the world to see. Willard Carroll Smith Jr. was born on September 25, 1968, in Philadelphia. His mother, Caroline, was a school board administrator, a figure of discipline and stability. His father, Willard Carroll Smith Sr., was an Air Force veteran and refrigerator engineer. He was also a man of strict rules, iron discipline, and, at times, a violent temper. Will remembers one night vividly. As a young boy, he saw his father hit his mother so hard, she collapsed. In that moment, something inside him shattered. He felt powerless. He felt like a coward. The image stayed with him for decades, haunting his dreams, shaping his sense of responsibility, and feeding the guilt that would never fully go away. That night created a silent vow inside him. He would protect people. He would make them laugh. He would never let the people around him feel unsafe. Humor became his armor, his shield against chaos. Every joke was a distraction from the pain. Every laugh was a victory against silence. By his teenage years, Will had found his way out through music. Partnering with Jeffrey Towns, better known as DJ Jazzy Jeff, he created a duo that blended humor, storytelling, and rhythm. Their music wasn't about darkness or rebellion. It was light, playful, fun. Songs like Parents Just Don't Understand and Summertime turned him into a star. In 1989, they even won the first ever Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance. For Will, it was proof that his mask worked. The world didn't see the boy who felt powerless in his own home. They saw the Fresh Prince, a kid full of charm, wit, and boundless energy. But the money that came with fame slipped through his fingers. By the time he was 20, Smith was broke, owing the IRS millions in unpaid taxes. His career could have ended before it began. Then, fate offered him a lifeline. In 1990, NBC came knocking. They wanted him to star in a sitcom built around his musical persona. That show became The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Overnight, Will Smith transformed into a household name. The sitcom wasn't just entertainment. It mirrored parts of his life. A kid navigating two worlds, humor masking discomfort, energy hiding vulnerability. Week after week, he made America laugh. He became the face of joy, of playful rebellion, of charm that never seemed to fade. But behind the scenes, Will wrestled with something deeper. Fame was a drug, applause a salve for his wounds. Every laugh from the audience felt like validation that he was worthy, that he mattered. Yet the boy who saw his mother collapse never disappeared. He lived inside the man, whispering doubts, reminding him of his failures. After 6 seasons of television, Will set his sights on something bigger: Hollywood. Most sitcom actors struggled to transition into film. Will didn't just transition, he redefined the game. In 1996, he starred in Independence Day. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural phenomenon, grossing over $800 million worldwide. The next year came Men in Black, another smash. Suddenly, Will Smith wasn't just a TV star. He was the biggest movie star in the world. From Enemy of the State to Ali, from I, Robot to Hitch, Will dominated the box office for over a decade. By the 2000s, he had become Hollywood's most bankable actor. Studios trusted him. Audiences adored him. Every smile, every one-liner, every larger-than-life role reinforced the mask he had built. But success came with a cost. Behind the curtain, Will was driven by an obsession with perfection. He worked tirelessly, afraid to slow down, afraid to fail, afraid that if the applause stopped, the pain would return. By the mid-2000s, cracks began to show. Will had built a life of discipline, control, and relentless pursuit of excellence. But control cannot silence old ghosts. He admitted in his memoir that part of his drive came from guilt. The guilt of feeling like he failed his mother the night his father struck her. Every performance, every movie, every smile was an attempt to erase that failure. But guilt is not so easily erased. Relationships around him strained. His marriage with Jada Pinkett Smith faced struggles, often under the magnifying glass of public scrutiny. He tried to project the image of the perfect family, the perfect husband, the perfect father. But perfection was a performance. Behind closed doors, the reality was far more complicated. Then came a moment that forced him to confront the truth head-on. In 2016, Will's father was diagnosed with cancer. For years, Will carried a mix of fear, anger, and love toward the man who shaped him. His father had been both his tormentor and his teacher. Violent at times, but also disciplined, hard-working, determined. As he cared for his father in those final months, Will was forced to reconcile the contradictions. He remembered the violence, yes, but he also remembered the lessons: responsibility, resilience, grit. Sitting with his father, watching him fade, Will faced the boy inside him who felt powerless. It was not forgiveness that healed him. It was acceptance. His father was not just one thing. Neither was he. Pain and love coexisted. Discipline and violence, laughter and silence. They were all part of the same story. Through it all, his marriage to Jada remained one of Hollywood's most scrutinized relationships. They married in 1997, raising 2 children, Jaden and Willow, while navigating careers, fame, and private turmoil. At times, they spoke openly about their unconventional approach to marriage. At other times, tabloids tore them apart with speculation. Will admitted that his obsession with building a perfect picture of their relationship often added more pressure than peace. Yet despite the storms, their partnership endured. Jada became not just his wife, but his mirror, reflecting truths he didn't always want to face, challenging him to look beyond the mask, pushing him toward vulnerability. Then came March 27, 2022, the night of the Oscars, the night the world saw the mask shatter in real time. When comedian Chris Rock made a joke about Jada's shaved head, Will walked on stage and slapped him across the face. The moment stunned millions. Here was the man known for charm and composure, exploding with anger on the world's biggest stage. For some, it was unforgivable. For others, it was a glimpse of the man beneath the performance, a man carrying unresolved pain, protectiveness, and raw emotion. Will later apologized, publicly and privately, but the moment left a scar on his legacy. It was his most public fall, and yet perhaps also his most human. In 2021, Will Smith released his memoir, Will. For decades, he had been the man with the brightest smile in Hollywood, the star who seemed untouchable, flawless, always in control. But in the pages of his book, he stripped away that illusion. He revealed the wounds that fame couldn't heal, the shadows that applause couldn't chase away. The memoir wasn't just a story of his career, It was the unmasking of a man who had spent his entire life performing, not just for the camera, but for survival. The book was raw. It was vulnerable. It was not written to entertain. It was written to confront. Will described himself as a child, standing helplessly as his father struck his mother. That moment, he confessed, shaped his entire life. He grew up believing he was a coward, believing he had failed in his most important duty, to protect the ones he loved. That guilt became the fuel for his relentless ambition. Every laugh he inspired, every role he played, every success he achieved was, in some way, an attempt to silence that voice of shame inside him. But the truth, as he admitted in his memoir, was that no amount of fame could silence it. Success without healing is a hollow victory. He wrote of nights when, despite being one of the most famous men in the world, he felt small, broken, unworthy. The applause would fade, the lights would dim, and he was left alone with himself, the one person he could never escape. Through therapy and self-reflection, Will began peeling back the layers he had built over decades. For so long, he had believed his role in life was to be the protector of his mother, his wife, his children, his fans, his image. But that mission came at a cost. In protecting others, he often abandoned himself. He poured his energy outward, leaving little for his own healing. Spiritual exploration became another part of his journey. He sought perspectives beyond Hollywood's shallow praise. He turned to meditation, to guided retreats, even to psychedelic experiences that forced him to confront the deepest fears he had buried. For the first time, he allowed himself to sit in the discomfort, to feel the pain he had long tried to outrun. And in that stillness, he began to see something he had never allowed himself to believe. He didn't have to be perfect to be loved. This stage of Will's life was not about redemption in the eyes of the public. It wasn't about repairing an image or restoring his career. It was about something far more personal, redemption in his own eyes. For years, he had equated love with performance, worth with achievement, safety with control. But now, he was beginning to learn that true freedom came from surrender. From admitting that he was flawed, human, and still worthy of love. Learning to sit with pain instead of running from it. Learning to embrace imperfection instead of hiding behind performance. These were not easy lessons for a man who had built his life on stage, under lights, in front of cameras. But they were necessary. For the first time in his life, Will Smith wasn't performing. He was simply being. And in that raw honesty, perhaps, he found the truest role he would ever play: himself. Will Smith's legacy is not a clean narrative of triumph tied neatly with a bow. It is a story full of contradictions, messy, complicated, human. On one hand, he is a global superstar who conquered music, television, and film. On the other, he is still the boy from Philadelphia who felt powerless watching his mother hurt. Both truths live inside him, and both truths shape the way the world sees him. The power of his story lies not in perfection, but in imperfection. For decades, Will embodied charm, humor, and boundless energy. He became the face of joy, the man who could light up a room with a single smile. Yet behind that light lived shadows, fears, regrets, and memories that haunted him. His journey reminds us that even those who seem untouchable carry invisible scars. When people think of Will Smith, they remember the laughter. They remember the fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the playful kid who danced his way into American living rooms. They remember the swagger of Men in Black, the hero of Independence Day, the tender father in the Pursuit of Happyness. His roles gave hope, comfort, and joy to millions around the world. That is a legacy no scandal, no stumble, no mistake can erase. But there is another layer to his story, a lesson about the cost of carrying pain without healing it. Will himself admitted that his perfectionism, his drive, his obsession with success were not born out of pure ambition. They were born out of guilt, born out of the need to protect, born out of the boy who once felt he failed his mother. His fame was not just a dream fulfilled. It was a mask carefully built to hide the pain within. That is why his legacy matters so deeply. It shows us the fragility of success without inner peace. It shows us that the applause of millions cannot silence the doubts that whisper in the dark. It shows us that laughter can mask tears, and even the brightest smiles can hide the deepest wounds. The world saw this contradiction most clearly in the moment that shook his career, the slap at the Oscars. For some, it was unforgivable. For others, it was human. But for all, it was a reminder that behind the polished image lives a man made of flesh, emotion, and history. A man who can break. A man who can hurt. A man who, despite everything, keeps searching for balance. Will Smith's story teaches us that legacy is not about flawless victories. It is about resilience. It is about stumbling and still moving forward. It is about facing the parts of ourselves we wish we could bury. His life forces us to confront a hard truth. Greatness does not come from hiding our wounds. It comes from embracing them. In the end, Will's greatest gift may not be the movies, the music, or the awards. It may be the courage to live openly in his contradictions, to show the world that being human means being broken and brilliant all at once. His legacy is not perfection. His legacy is survival, vulnerability, and the reminder that even the strongest heroes are still human. Will Smith is not just the Fresh Prince. He is not only the king of Hollywood, and he is certainly not just the man who made the whole world laugh. Beneath all of that, he is a son, a father, a husband, and a flawed human being searching for peace. For decades, the world celebrated his charm, his smile, his ability to light up the screen with energy and wit. But behind every blockbuster hit and every award show appearance, there was a man carrying the invisible weight of his past. A boy who once felt powerless in his own home. A man who spent years trying to protect everyone else from pain, while quietly wrestling with his own. Behind the fame, behind the perfection, behind the carefully crafted image, stood someone who survived, stumbled, and kept going. He was not untouchable. He was not invincible. He was real. And maybe that is what makes his story resonate so deeply with millions of people. Will's journey shows us something we often forget. Success does not erase scars. Applause does not silence inner battles. Fame does not guarantee peace. He had it all. The awards, the money, the recognition. Yet he still had to confront the boy inside who carried guilt, fear, and doubt. When the world saw him stumble, when the mask cracked in public, it was a reminder that even our heroes are human. Even the brightest stars have shadows. And sometimes, it takes falling apart for someone to finally find themselves. What makes Will Smith's story powerful is not just his triumphs, it is his vulnerability, the courage to admit his mistakes, the honesty to share his pain, and the determination to keep growing even when the world is watching his every move. His legacy is bigger than Hollywood, bigger than box office records, bigger than red carpets or trophies. His true legacy lies in the message his life carries, that resilience is not about being perfect. It is about rising after the fall, that authenticity matters more than appearances, that even when the world applauds your mask, peace only comes when you take it off. Will Smith's life is a mirror. It asks us questions about ourselves. How often do we hide our pain behind smiles? How many of us use success as a shield from our fears? And when the mask finally cracks, are we brave enough to face the truth beneath it? Perhaps the greatest role Will Smith has ever played is not on screen, but in real life. The role of a man learning to be himself. A man embracing both the light and the darkness within. A man teaching us that humanity, not perfection, is the truest form of greatness. And maybe, in the end, that is his most important gift to the world. Not the movies, not the laughter, not even the music, but the reminder that being real is enough. This is Will Smith. Unmasked. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful journeys like this. Your support helps us keep bringing you the real stories behind the legends.